started here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Margaret DeBellis, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight. I am from beautiful Horseshoe Lake in Stafford, and I'm going to be your host this evening. On behalf of the Stafford Preservation Group, I wish to welcome all of you to Stafford's 8th Biennial Candidates Night. The Stafford Preservation Group is a nonpartisan organization whose members do hands-on work to help safeguard local and state democracy issues. We're directly involved in shaping topics that keep our communities strong. This evening, our emphasis is on voting and the process which aids citizens in their clarity at the voting booth. Before we go any further, I would like to ask everyone to take a moment and make that last courtesy check to make sure that all your cell phones are turned off. So I'll pause for a minute if you want to do that. And I thank you for doing that. Okay. Beside me tonight, I would like to introduce our evening's moderator, Jamie Call. He is Lieutenant 1st Platoon with the City of Batavia Fire Department. Jamie? Okay, we'll be back to you in just a minute. Stafford Preservation wishes to acknowledge all those who made this evening possible by their research, planning, participation, and donations. A big special thank goes out to Linda Call for making the scrumptious looking vote pie. And everyone gets an opportunity to put in for the drawing for that pie. Okay, I wanted to see if they were ready. Boy Scout Troop 6 will present our flag. And Bob Clement will lead us in the pledge to our flag, after which Diane Hahn will be singing the Star Spangled Banner.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone, please join me. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Diane, and thank you to the Boy Scout Troop 6. At this time, I'd now like to introduce our candidates for the 2019 Stafford elections, which are taking place on Tuesday, November 5th. I'm happy to have you here. Thanks for coming. I'm going to start with Michael Cianfrini. Oh. I'm not introducing them now. I've made a, okay, so it's a mistake. I'm very, very sorry.
That's okay.
I would like to introduce, where are we? Reverend Colleen O'Connor from St. Paul's Episcopal, and she is going to say a prayer for us. Or say a prayer.
Say a prayer.
Not just for us.
Well, for us and everyone else too.
Thank you.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech you that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will. Bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitudes brought here from many nations and tongues. Give the spirit of wisdom to those whom in your name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to your law we may show forth your praise among the nations of the earth. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, suffer not our trouble in you to fail. Send down upon those who hold office in this town the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all peoples. All this we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend O'Connor. Thank you. Okay, looks like I'm going to be introducing. I'm really sorry about that. I have two different scripts that I'm working off of, but yes, let's just start from, I would introduce Steve Hawley.
Who's back there?
Come on up, Steve.
You want to stand
You can just pop in.
I'm not up for election this year, but I'd be happy to join my friends.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you very much for coming. Okay. So, yes, Steve Hawley, New York State Assemblyman. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming tonight. And now we will start the introductions of those that are running for office. And you folks may or may not know this. These folks are incumbents, but they are running unopposed. So, but there's still good conversation to be had with them. And, you know, just feel free to keep your questions coming once we get this started, because I think that even though they're incumbents, there's still a lot to learn from them. Okay, so I'm going to start by introducing James Duyssen. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. James Duyssen is running for town council. Next is Don Mullen, and he is also running for town council. Next we have Robert Pacer, running for town council. And then we have Bob Clement. He is our town supervisor. And are you running for town supervisor?
Just walking.
I thought you were. And I'm sorry. I just thought you were. Okay, next we have Robert Penepant, who is running for town justice, and Robert Mattice, who is running for town justice, and we have Michael Cianfrini, who is running for county clerk. And can we give them all a big hand? We're going to be having Michael Cianfrini. He is going to be addressing us on how New York state laws may affect our Genesee County towns. Michael?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Mike Cianfrini. I am running for county clerk for my second term. I've been county clerk for one term already. While I am unopposed, I never know what the future may bring, so I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm native of Oakfield, born and raised there. I am married. My wife Melissa's here with me tonight. I have 2 children. I am a licensed attorney. I graduated law school in 1999. I practiced law in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I went to law school at the University of Pittsburgh. I practiced there for 5 years. Moved back to Oakfield, went into practice with my father, where I practiced for almost 10 years with him. 6 years ago, I took a job as deputy county clerk under Don Reed. When he retired, I ran for county clerk, and here I am running for my second term. So I just wanted to give you a little background on myself. A little bit about my office, county clerk. For those of you that don't know, we're the place that you come to record deeds, mortgages, easements, anything that affects land, judgments. We're the clerk of the court for the county court and Supreme Court, so any felony level criminal file is filed in my office. Anytime somebody sues somebody in Supreme Court, those are also filed in my office. We are also passport agents. Another big part of the job is we issue pistol permits, which I can say has been booming. I just happened to look at it today. In 2008, we set a record for the number of pistol permits issued in Genesee County for that year at 79. 2013, we issued 335. In 2016, we issued 679. And we're on pace to issue about 400 this year. I'm surprised there's anybody left in the county that doesn't have a pistol. But that is a big part of my office's job. I also run the motor vehicle office, so I'm sure all of you have been there at some point, so that's a big part of our job. What I'm kind of here to talk to you tonight about a little bit is, number one, the need to vote. You know, you're all here to see the candidates, ask questions, so obviously you're all concerned citizens. And that's great, because if we look at what's been going on in the state, especially over the last 2 years, and probably Assemblyman Hawley can speak to that better than anyone, since New York State lost the 2-party rule, and one party took over all 3 branches of government, the Senate, the Assembly, and the Governor's office. Things have changed drastically, and in my opinion, not for the better. If we look at what's been the priorities coming out of Albany over the last year, you know, let's look at them. We've got increasing pay for felons in prison. They give tablets to every prisoner in jail and prison. We've got allowing felons to vote. We've got a farm bill that potentially could be devastating to upstate New York farms, the small farmers especially. We've got driver's licenses for illegal immigrants. Those are just naming a few. We've got bail reform, where they no longer, for almost every crime, they will no longer allow cash bail. So somebody can break into your home, get caught, and that person's going to be back on the street that night because they can't hold them on bail. It's almost, as John Dealey on the county legislature likes to say, you can't make this up. It's devastating. My wife works in the district attorney's office. She can tell you, they changed the discovery laws, obviously to favor defendants. They have to turn over all this information within an incredibly limited amount of time. It really is almost impossible to meet, or else these people get let go. And I think the bottom line to all of it is, who have they been looking to benefit for the last year? We're seeing felons are being benefited. We're seeing defendants, before they get convicted, being benefited. And we're seeing illegals be benefited. What we're not seeing are any laws or any regulations coming out of Albany that's benefiting you or you. You know, anything that's benefiting hardworking people that pay taxes and don't commit crimes. In terms of the effect on, on our towns, you look at the Farm Bill. I mean, Genesee County is a pretty agrarian county. And these small farmers don't have the money to pay, massive overtime. I've worked on a farm. I'm sure a lot of people here have. You don't work 8 hours a day. You just don't. You don't work 40 hours in a week. You work until the job's done. And that's the way it is. But, that bill is going to be devastating, just on the county level, because of the regulations and the new laws that are being passed with regard to bail, with regard to the criminal discovery. It's forcing the county to have to hire new people. They're hiring a new assistant district attorney, another paralegal. They have to hire a part-time district attorney, just because they have to try to keep up. That all ends up having an impact on your taxes. From my perspective, the biggest one that's affecting me the most is the driver's license for illegal immigrants. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen this. It's been in the news. It's been kind of a big story. But in case anybody isn't aware, what it involves is a non-citizen, an illegal non-citizen, no green card, can come into a DMV in this state, provide an out-of-country document, a foreign birth certificate, a foreign, some kind of foreign identification document in any language that we can't translate. It could be in Swahili. I don't speak it. I can't read it. I can't translate it. They have to hand that to us along with signing a statement saying, I don't have a social security card. And we, under that law, have to issue them a driver's license. Now, for any of you who have come in and gotten a driver's license, you know how daunting it can be sometimes. You have to provide your birth certificate, an original birth certificate, a social security card, get your 6 points of ID. Lord knows if any of you have come to get an enhanced ID, especially for a woman who's been married and her name has changed, and God forbid you got divorced, at any point in your life, now you're providing a divorce decree, a marriage certificate. I couldn't count how many times we've had to turn people away, and it breaks my heart, because they don't have the documents that they need. They wait a half hour, get up to the counter, and we have to turn them away because you don't have your marriage certificate. Yet, we're being told that, somebody can stroll in from another country illegally, provide, not the same documentation that you need, and we have to just hand them a driver's license. To make matters worse, once they get up to the window, the state installed what they call customer-facing devices, which are basically keypads, touchscreen pads on every window, which we can't control. So when we run the transaction to issue the driver's license, it then pops up and says, would you like to register to vote? If they push yes, they're registered to vote. It then gets sent up to the Board of Elections. We can't stop it. We can't disable that function. We can't do anything about it. I checked with the Board of Elections and said, hey, if this happens, can you, cross-reference these to make sure that these people, can be purged from the voter rolls? They said, no, there's absolutely no way we can do that. We wouldn't have any idea that they're illegal, and short of checking every single person that registers to vote for their citizenship status, they said, no, they're going to be registered to vote and they can vote. And then to make matters even worse, if at any point in this process, anybody, myself or anybody in my office, reports them, either contacts immigration, or if we see them illegally register to vote and we contact law enforcement because it's a crime, or if they answer the question on the voting registration, are you a U.S. citizen? If they put yes, they've now committed perjury. If we contact law enforcement to report that crime, under that bill, we've now committed a misdemeanor crime and we can be arrested. So I've gone on record and said I won't do it. I've received a letter from the state, basically saying that we have to, that we are facing removal from office. Any county clerk who doesn't do it, technically we would be subject to arrest. I think that's a little drastic. I'd like to think they won't do it, but I don't know anymore with this state. So those are the types of things that are coming out of Albany, and those are the types of things that are affecting us. Maybe not you directly, but I just think society in general in New York State. It's going downhill. People are fleeing in droves. Just look at the population statistics. We're losing people at a faster rate than in almost any other state in the country. Maybe it doesn't affect you directly, but in terms of this state in general, we're losing representation in Congress as our population drops. And I don't care what Cuomo says that it's the climate. It isn't. Okay, we've all lived here our whole lives. we're all used to snow. We can take that. People are leaving because of the political climate, because of the government, because of the laws that are being passed in this state. It's driving people out, and it's not good. So what I would ask for all of you, obviously vote locally. Listen to all the candidates. They're going to have an immediate direct effect on you. But also look at the county level, and especially the state. Look at our representatives. Look at what's coming out of Albany. Look at where they stand, where Assemblyman Hawley stands. And cast your vote based on what's best, for you, for your families, for this county, and for the state in general.
I know that we're supposed to write things on cards, but I'd like to say something. Sandy encouraged me to come tonight. I'm going to come up because I don't want to just see you. I'll let you glare at me, but I want to see you. I didn't want to come because what we have here, you say go vote. You tell me who I can go vote for who doesn't have your point of view. Every single person sitting here is Republican or conservative. Our community is not entirely Republican and conservative, but there is no alternative to that. And what we don't have here is a democracy. And if I go to the city or the county level, I'm sorry that Andrew Young isn't here tonight. But there is the same situation sitting in our county. Everyone is Republican. You have a very biased point of view, I'm sorry to say.
I'll openly admit, I have
Yes, you're
biased
very
point of view.
biased.
Yeah.
For instance, the farm workers, is our law enforcement going after the farmers who are bringing in or have employed these aliens that you refer to? Are they taking them to the detention center? No. I've protested in front of that detention center in the snow, freezing my baby off, because the people they're being picked up on the highway because they're Guatemalan and they look like they come from Central America. And if they're behind the wheel of a car, laugh at me, that's okay. But if they're behind the wheel of a car, they might as well be wearing a sign saying, "Stop me, you can arrest me, I don't have a driver's license."
I don't think that's accurate.
It is
That
accurate.
would be racially profiled.
Excuse me, it happened in Genesee over a year ago when the women were in the car going to a church where they could learn English and they were stopped. Nothing that they had done was
I gotta
wrong.
stop you here, Beth.
No, wait a second.
No. This is not the venue for
Thank
this.
you.
But
Well,
Beth, this is not the venue for
It
this.
is the venue
This is
for
not the
this,
venue for this.
because this
What I would
is
say
not
is,
a democracy.
I don't think we want to debate each and every individual.
No, but
point.
you got to debate and try and tell everybody what you think.
That's right.
But there's no alternative.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The beauty of a democracy, the beauty of this country, and the
It's
beauty-
not a happy
you say you
climate to
don't have
run
a choice,
for
but
office.
you do. You
It's
have
not,
the opportunity to run for office.
No,
You
we
have
don't.
the opportunity to promote candidates that do share your point of view.
no,
And you have
not
the
in
opportunity
Genesee
to vote for
County.
anybody that you want.
It is a very
If the majority of the people don't share your
uncomfortable
view,
community to try and
that's a
run
democracy.
for anything but Republican. And you know perfectly well, for years and years and years, people couldn't get jobs in the school system, at the racetrack, or laugh.
Well, I'm just saying, it's
In a
not
number
that you don't have the
and
opportunities
your-
that it's the
in your
majority of people in the
legacy.
county
Let's
don't.
face it, in
A
your
majority of the
legacy,
people
in your
don't
legacy.
support your view. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity to voice it or to vote for people.
Good night,
because you
Sandy.
do.
I'm sorry, but we need a change. We need open government.
I would like to say one thing. She's right in many ways, but we need a change in order for all people to see all problems that we have and work together to solve them. I don't know, I'm like realistic, the license, people get licensed. I knew that, but I thought they were just like when you go to Europe. You can get a temporary license in Europe to drive a car. So, there's alternatives to have just this way. but have it fulfill other, maybe people who work here, have a temporary license. You know, there's all
These are over
solutions.
licenses currently.
So I understand that you're running on one side, but you should, when you talk, you should always say there's other solutions
I'll try
that
to
are, you know,
brief,
that the Democrats are a big bad people. Well, I think truthfully, all the politicians take one side or the other, and then we just have conflict. We need not to have conflict anymore. We need to come and make solutions.
All right, to address that one issue,
So,
specifically
I
with the
just
driver's
thought I'd
licenses
say
in 10 seconds,
Okay.
we, as the
I was
Association
never
of
gonna
County
say
Clerks, we
anything.
did make recommendations on that law. We recommended, like other states that issue driver's licenses, we said, could you put something on it indicating for driving purposes only, not for identification? Could you renew it annually like a lot of states require? Several recommendations were made, and to every one of those, we were told no. They're going to look exactly like yours, and we were ignored. But
But
Thank
not
you.
exactly like yours, because they're going to be stamped on them that
no, they're not. But
that's what it went. That's how it was going.
It's not.
That they would not look like the driver's
They
license.
can have my
in
license, I don't
wallet.
like to drive anymore.
Okay, we're gonna get on, and we're going to move on.
Can I
And
just ask one question? We're required to have,
Ma'am,
and
we have to stop
okay.
because we have a program we have to follow tonight. And so
Okay.
any questions tonight need to be put down on paper, and then
And
I'll
I'll pick them
introduce
up.
them, because if not, we're gonna be here all night. So just let us get to that point, and then everybody can get their questions answered. But sorry for interrupting.
I was gonna ask Steve Hawley if he'd like to say a few words, but no. I'm not sure.
Well,
If you just,
I've known Beth for many, many, many years, and I understand her viewpoints. I accept them and I respect them, just as I have to do in the state assembly, where those of us that live anywhere other than downstate are in the minority. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. What I've tried to do over the years, 13 plus years now, is to form relationships with folks that I may disagree with philosophically, maybe even 100% of the time. But it doesn't mean that we have to have a feeling of anger or bitterness or shaking of fists or pounding our fists on the table. We have to learn to work with them, respect who they are, respect the fact that their constituents are not the same as we are at all, and from whence they come and the philosophies they have is difficult for us to accept because we don't live like them, we don't view life like them, and a farm bill to them, I mean, the chairman of this labor committee in the assembly lives in Manhattan, Kathy Nolan. She's been the sponsor of this bill for years and years and years.
I'm sorry, what bill?
The farm labor bill, I'm sorry, that would unionize farm laborers, that will now unionize farm laborers, pay them time and a half for any hours over 60. I initially asked her when I got there, but then I realized that it really wasn't going to affect much of anything, so I stopped that and worked with bringing legislators up here. I asked her in the beginning, in a brief floor debate, how many farms she had in her district. And her response was to never look at me in the face, but to look at the Speaker of the Assembly and say, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to answer that. So I halved it. And I said, would it be fair to say that you have less than 50? If you don't have 100, maybe less than 50. Same response, not looking at me as another human being and another assemblyman, just like she is. So I said, how about less than 25, less than 10? And then I finally said, I think I have the answer. I believe that as the sponsor of a bill that will decimate the #1 industry in the state of New York, you have less than one farm in your district. And I said, I have no further questions. That really said it all. We have folks who are out of the downstate area, and it doesn't, by the way, if Beth were still here, they just all happen to be Democrats. There are less than 5 to 6% Republicans in the New York City area, in the boroughs. But that's who they are, and those are their constituents. So we have to work with them in trying to figure out ways that we have some import as a resident of the state of New York. What have I done, aside from forming a relationship with folks that I don't agree with, but do it with respect? I invite them to come up here. I invite them to come to the farms in Stafford, in Orleans County, and up in Monroe County. We go to orchards. We go to dairy farms. We have them talk with immigrants one-on-one to find out how they're treated and what they think of America and Western New York and our farms. That fell on deaf ears when we came to the Farm Labor Bill because every one of the 6 that I brought up here voted for it. Because even though they've been here, even though they've seen it and heard it and smelled it, that's not who they represent. Sometimes, and more often than not, the blinders for your district you can't see peripherally. And we just have to continue to work on it. I just went to a farm tour down in Greene and Schoharie County with Assemblyman Chris Tay, where there were 7 New York City Assembly folks with us, and another 5 or 6 from upstate. Somebody said to me, Holly, you're going to go down and tour farms? Don't you have any farms in your district? That's not the point. The point is that we make relationships with folks so that we can all hopefully get along better. So even though I understand where Beth is coming from, it's the same in the boroughs of New York City. But do we get upset? We say we don't have a choice? We don't. We try to work and get along together so we have a better tomorrow and a better economy. And Mike is absolutely right. I'm the insurance business. We have license plates coming in from Tennessee and North Carolina and South Carolina and Florida and Alabama, believe it or not. Folks are fleeing the state. Individuals, seniors, young folks, businesses, they're fleeing. And they're fleeing because of the types of legislation and the mandates and the fees and the coddling of criminals that's going on now this last year when we became one downstate rule in Albany. That's the truth.
You know, can I just ask one question? I understand how this starts like with a bill, but who in God's name starts a bill that says illegal aliens can have a license, that prisoners can have this, and that? I don't get it.
But maybe there's reasons for all those.
Like
And they
what?
might be legitimate reasons. Just like it might be legitimate to pay somebody after 60 hours of work 1.5 times their pay. Come on, Steve.
Yes,
You
if
know
you-
that's true.
Sandy, if you-
I wouldn't want to work 60 hours for $10 an hour, let's say, okay?
Understand.
So that was one-sided of you, naughty boy.
So,
But, you know,
philosophically,
but
that feels...
that's a labor
Sure,
of you.
sure.
And then your agriculture. I have both in my family.
Sure.
So we have to learn to get it together.
So in my heart and in my mind, I feel good about paying somebody if they work a lot of hours in a week. But agriculture, as a former farmer myself, is not the same as working at a
Right.
school, working at an insurance agency,
But still
or doing
60
most
hours.
any other job. We are not Florida or California,
Right.
where they have a 12-month growing and harvesting season where
Right.
the sun shines, and if it
Right.
rains, it only rains a little bit, then it gets sunny again. We aren't like that. So
Right.
there's an old adage that says, make hay while the sun shines.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be hay. Look at the rain that we had this last year. Farmers couldn't get in the fields to plant peas. They couldn't get in to plant sweet or field corn and then sweet corn because we were swamped. So what do you do when you can finally get in the fields over at Oakfield by Lamb Farms or any place else? You make hay while the sun shines.
Well-
And you work 14, 16, 18 hours. When I got hurt on the farm, my brother went to work for Elbrook Farms. He said to me, how many hours, once this was about 7 or 8 years ago, how many hours do you think we worked this year? It was summertime, this week. 98 hours. Because you have to.
You don't have a choice.
You know, here's the solution.
And no other state, by the way, Sandy, has a law like the farm labor law that allows collective bargaining and time and a half. Do you know where the immigrant labor is
Right.
gonna go? They're going to go to Connecticut and
Here's the
Pennsylvania,
solution.
and then we don't have anybody.
Here's a solution completely out of the box. The Democrats want free education, college, okay? And that means from everyone.
There's nothing free.
Okay? No, there isn't. So, but here's a solution. You want a free education in college, you have to work on a farm in the summer, 2 months when you get first out of high school. I think that'd be good. That's an incentive. Give them some money to work on a farm. And then they work and they learn both sides of
But when you and I grew up,
I
all my
know.
friends came out to the farm and shoveled chicken
I know,
manure,
I know.
baled hay, baled straw,
But
drank the iced tea, and perspired heavily and stayed in
You
shape.
wanna go to
Who
Genesee?
works on a
Help
farm now?
out.
Nobody works on the farm. Even if you pay them, they won't come.
But see, then it's an incentive. You want some free education?
Okay, I just wanted Steve to say a few words, and I understand.
Come on, we gotta think out of the box.
Everybody wants to say something, and I understand. Thank you, Steve. And gentlemen, I am really sorry for what happened here. I apologize. I just didn't know how to stop it. Sorry. Okay.
Thank you for letting us talk.
Sure. But, all righty. Yikes, I'm all out of sorts here. Everybody, is there a particular, thing to sign up for the pies? Is there a particular?
Everybody has an orange sheet to sign up for the
Okay,
pie.
there's an orange sheet. Everybody can sign up for the pie. Make sure you do. And, then Joan will come along with her little basket and pick those up too, and as well as any questions. So if you still have a burning question, or you even have a thought that you'd like to get out, please write it down and give it to Joan. Okay, because you don't want to miss out on that yummy pie. All right, now let's turn this over to Jamie Call, our moderator for the evening.
Okay,
Jamie.
so I'm just gonna touch on that again. Please put the question who it's for. I have a couple up here that are very, very general, so they're gonna be put to the end. If we don't get to them, we don't get to them. So make sure they're put to who the person is. We have a very diverse bunch of people up here of what they do. So I'm happy to here to moderate our candidates tonight. Candidate meetings have been around since the 1920s. Many candidate nights are held throughout the country each year. They usually invite all the candidates to speak and bring their information to a nonpartisan forum. These meetings are a service to the voters because it gives them a means of forming a first-hand judgment of the candidates, and because it gives them an opportunity to present their views to audience of varied political affiliation. They are considered special events in the election calendar year and for a very good reason. The debates and questions are fair and unbiased. They're conducted for informational purposes without hidden agenda and are controlled by principles of nonpartisanship. Voting is an essential step in the process of democracy. In exercising our choices for elective office, we affirm our faith in the democratic process. We're happy to present our Meet the Candidates program, where candidates and interested voters meet to listen to issues and ask questions. As you watch and listen to this debate, think ahead. Ask yourself which issues are most important to you and jot down what you'd like to learn from each of the candidates. Feel free to ask a specific question. Make sure the questions are fair and pertinent. Afterwards, take time to talk with your friends and family about the debate, the questions, and the answers. Vote on November 5th, please, vote. Along with attending town meetings, it's your best opportunity to make your vote heard and help shape the issues that concern you in the town. As we proceed, I'll ask you to take 5 minutes to write out your questions on the cards, which most of you have already done that. We'll hope you come up with questions on issues you regard as important. More cards are available if you have more questions. So please now write those questions down. And the only thing I ask again, though, please, let's keep this forum the way it has been going. The debate going back and forth, of you asking questions specifically, we're going to be here till probably tomorrow. And I have to work tomorrow, so that's not going to work for me. But again, please put down who they're for, and then we'll get to that. And then don't forget to get your thing for the pie.
Right, thank you. So while Jamie's busy organizing his questions, I'm just going to ask everyone to just take notice of the handouts that were on your seat. And again, I want to mention the door prize. The incredible apple vote pie, if you saw it over there on the table, and I can swear that it's delicious because I just bought one at the historical auction the other day, and it was wonderful. It's made by our famous Stafford pie maker, Linda Call.
Margaret, excuse me, tell them they do not have to share with the rest of us.
Oh, right.
Unless they are so inclined.
Yeah, you don't have to like cut a piece out and give it to me or anything. You can just take the whole pie home.
What kind of pie is it, Linda? That pie's taken, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so if, again, and I know I keep saying this, I've lost my train of thought again, but if you want to fill out the information on the raffle ticket, just hold it up, fold it over, someone will come and collect it. Okay, and at the end of the evening, we're going to be drawing for that wonderful pie. All right, let's see here. What else? Yeah, I think we're going to get started with our questions.
Look at them all. We got tons of them. This is good. This is good stuff. Were you hoarding them?
I don't know, I thought they were blank.
Did you fill them out
I'm
yourself?
sorry.
All right.
That's just throwing me off kilter. I really, I totally apologize for that. Gosh, I do.
All right, you ready? I'm
Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, this is for the judges. What further education are you doing to help with your position? That's what
That would be Penepant.
either of you.
Well, every year, the judges are required to take a minimum of 12 hours of credit. And both Judge Mattice and I have completed our 12 hours. In fact, Judge Mattice probably has a few more hours than I do this year, but I think right this year I have probably close to 16 hours. All total in the past 8 years, soon to be 8 years in December, I have well over 100 hours of judicial education for the job. It's Thomas Stafford Justice.
It just came back, we just came back from Lake Placid. How many hours in September? We took 20 hours in Lake Placid from the Judicial Conference. And I'm always on the Office of Court Administration's website. There's hundreds of hours of online training there. And I'm always on there since I'm new. I'm always on there taking online courses. They're sick of hearing from me, so.
Good. All right, I have another question that's no name, so I'm going to put it to our supervisor. Come on. What advice would you give to a young man just starting out in politics?
Well, if you want to run for office, you make it known to the with either the Republican committee or the Democrats that you want to run for office. Simple as that. I mean, assume that you would be qualified for whatever job you wanted, but you either contact whatever political party you want to be affiliated with, either Republicans or the Democrats, and they'll take it from there.
Okay, thank you. All right, James Duyssen. How do you see the town of Stafford in the next 5 years?
Well,
I don't know.
hello.
Okay.
I would hope to see this thing prosper in a way just as it has been in the past 200 years. It's been, there's a lot of things that are going to be changing, just like everything else is. I would hope that the farm industry stays the same as it has been. We hope to, I would like to think maybe we could get a little more industry in here somewhere. But it's gonna be tough in the state of New York to have that happen.
Mr. Mullen and Mr. Duyssen, is for both of you. Is there a law or just good sense to employ Stafford residents for Stafford jobs?
There is no law. The only people that have to be residents are elected officials. It's good sense if there is a qualified person to fill the position. If the job is put out and people apply, and if there's a Stafford resident who's qualified for that job, then yes, they should get the job. But in a town our size, it can be tough. We don't get a lot of responses, and there's, for lack of a better word, for some of the jobs, there may not be the necessary pool to pull jobs from.
I would think most of the time, most of the thing that needs to happen here is it has to have common sense as the grounds for what happens in this, for working our way up through. And this is, you know, and you gotta look forward to, of, you start at the bottom, you work your way up, and you just keep moving forward.
Thank you.
So here's one to all participants except judges. If you are notified that 5G is coming to our town, will you study into it and have a meeting informing us of the risk associated with it? Please discuss that. And I understand what 5G is, the higher level internet phones that's coming out. It used to be 4G, now it's 5G, if you weren't sure what that is.
No, we're working on a new phone system. I don't know if that's what you speak of there.
I'm currently studying and looking into the phone system, and I'm going to be presenting a system at the next town board meeting. And part of that is just understanding the technology that's out there. And for me, that's difficult. So I just got to ask a lot of questions and search for the right answers. And I can only hope and pray that I can have the information I need and be qualified enough at the next meeting to speak on that behalf.
Okay. Right. All right. Yes, sir. Well, I have a question here, but you already answered it. Mr. Cianfrini, do immigrants take a written driver's test for being issued a license?
Yes, they would be subject to the same requirements as any other driver, strictly in terms of taking the permit test and the road test. Though that is the same between citizens and non-citizens.
Okay. And here's one for the council, but how will each of you participate in the 2020 Stafford Bicentennial Celebration? We're going to lighten it up a little bit.
Bring back the beards. Yeah, we're gonna let our beards grow. We're working on it, Jamie, but I'm not sure exactly what we're gonna do. What we have done is, Linda Gall has done a fantastic job at setting stuff up. And we're trying to look at things we can do, and the biggest thing right now is to try to have events that happen throughout the year. So it just won't be one event and everybody comes to, and if they don't come to, fine.
what it is having different things throughout the year. Maybe the fire department would hold one thing, maybe the country club would hold something. We'd hold something here. We have different groups, and we hope they all participate.
I can tell you from my standpoint is that I won't be a lead in this, but anybody who comes to me and asks for help or needs direction or anything of that sort, I'm going to be there to help, but I'm just not going to take a lead role in it.
Okay. That stands for me too. I'll be a helper, whatever they need to do, help with coordinate events or whatever, and just ask.
Okay. Mr. Clement, does everyone in Stafford have county water now? Please comment.
No, they don't. No.
And can you expand upon that there, Bob?
Well,
is that in the future, or?
The water districts that we have now, you form a water district, you have to have quite a few people in the district in order to make it economically possible. There are some people, unfortunately, that live in the town of Stafford that will never see public water. We're working on, right now, in the early stages of Water District 12, which is part of Byron Road, Foch Road, School Road, Pro Road extension, in that it's in the northwest corner of the town. And probably that might be one of the last water districts that we do. If you pay for every foot of pipe that goes in the ground, and it depends on how many people are in that area, what's going to cost you. But to answer your question, does everybody have it? No. And will everybody have it? Well, unlikely.
Mr. Mullen, why is it possible to circumvent planned town districts, ag, residential, and commercial for asking for a variance for personal gain? So somebody was asking, somebody must have had personal gain and circumvented that system.
Can you repeat that?
I'll repeat. Why is it possible to circumvent planned town districts, ag, residential, and commercial? Is there a way for variances to get around those?
I can't honestly answer that. I don't have an answer to that question.
Yes.
Let's put it to the supervisor now.
Sure. Go after.
So I guess what they're asking is why is it allowed for certain people to circumvent those districts with a variance?
Well, I wouldn't call it circumventing. You can change the.
That's their words.
Yeah. You can change. You can go from agricultural, residential, to commercial. There is in the works right now a piece of property in the town of Stafford where the owner of it wishes to change it from AR to commercial because he has a commercial business that he wants to locate on the property, but he can't do it right now. But he's going through the process. He's applied for a variance. It's going to be on the agenda for the November town board meeting.
I apologize whoever asked that question, and I can't answer it, but I couldn't wrap my head around what was being asked. So I apologize for that.
I should have worded it a little better for you.
Yeah.
Mr. Cianfrini, what changes that will affect small farmers? What changes are coming up that will affect small farmers? Do you know of any? The sad thing is we don't have many in this town anymore.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the farm bill will have an effect, positive or negative, depending on your view. Beyond that, I probably couldn't comment. It's not something that the county clerk's office really handles. And just through my contacts in Albany, I haven't heard of anything. Perhaps
Steve might have a better idea, but I haven't heard of anything.
The farm labor bill is huge. Very devastating.
Mr. Duyssen, why are you running for the board? What qualities do you have to make Stafford a better place to live?
Well, I've wanted to be on the town board for many years. I've stepped away and let the more qualified people do it. And right now is the time where I felt that nobody else wanted to step up to the plate, and this was the time for me to step in. I wanted to step in while we had good board members on board that were very good, that have years of experience behind them, where I could learn from them.
Okay. That's a long one. I need my glasses for that one. Whoever wrote this small, you're mean. All right, so the supervisor and 3 councilmen. Someone has heard that other towns in Genesee County have a need for a law limiting battery storage near solar arrays. Would you and your committee look into this? And we're going to comment on that. And we are surrounded by a lot of energy radiation. Please limit this in our town. If you could please comment on this. So the person's interested in battery storage, possibly like the Tesla type things that are going out there nowadays, and the radiation possibly from solar arrays and different things. And I think this probably comes back to that 5G thing, because that's a radiation thing. So
We had a very comprehensive study. In fact, it's a 2-volume set of a study that we did, and then we have a summary of that, and it's open for anybody to read it. And it pretty well covers everything, including the battery storage. Of course, I don't know about battery storage for the solar arrays, if that has arrived yet or not. That might be a technology that's going to come down the road.
I just like to know who's doing those big solar farms around. Is it a company or is it your town or?
No, it's not. Those are all private. It's not done by the town.
if you have a question, please write it on a card. We'll get to that.
Sorry.
I'm your scolder. All right. Here's one that's a candidate. It doesn't have a, whoever wants to answer this one, or what are the upcoming changes in the town? What are upcoming changes in town, and how are you prepared for these changes? So this is just a generic question. Are there any changes coming up in this town that maybe people aren't aware of, and how are we prepared for this? Highway, infrastructure, anything like that, I guess.
The only change would be as the oncoming solar arrays, and how many of them will eventually come in. We have a law that's on the books. It hasn't been okayed by the Secretary of State yet, but it pretty well outlines what we're going to permit and what we're not going to permit, and the rules and regulations for everybody that wants to put a solar farm or solar array in the town.
And I'll expand on that because I know a little bit about this. Is there home rule involved in this, or can the state just come in and do what they want?
Depends on the size of it. The bigger it is, the state will come in, what is it, Article 10? And they'll tell you, this is going in a certain place, but I don't know what the size is.
25.
What is it?
25.
25 megawatts. The smaller ones are controlled by us, but when it gets bigger, the state comes in and says, this is what's going to happen, you have no choice.
Really?
Thank you.
And that comes from Albany. Our governor is, his goals, I don't know, Steve can tell you more about that than I can, I'm sure, but they're lofty.
The county clerk. For county clerk, how do you like your position as county clerk, first of all? And then what changes do you see that are needed in your position?
Number one, I do like my position. I like it very much. It's challenging. There's something new that comes through the door every day. One of the things that I saw when I took office, we had a need to modernize. The office has been run the same way really forever, all paper. And as, you know, technology has kind of surpassed us, so I've been trying to play catch up. I've been actively every year going back and back scanning records. You know, all of our deeds back to 1802 are in paper form. All of our civil and criminal records were all in paper form. In fact, our building had a bad flood about 3 years ago. Thank goodness it didn't affect my office, but probation, the workman's comp office, they lost countless records because of the flood. And that really brought home to me, we need to, you know, get these records scanned, get them into electronic form so that they're preserved. They're also a lot easier to search when they're in electronic form. In the last year and a half, I've also implemented what they call e-filing and e-recording. That's where you can submit deeds, mortgages, etc. electronically. Criminal cases can be filed, civil cases can be filed electronically so that we never actually even see an actual piece of paper. Everything is done electronically. So that's probably been my main focus, is digitalizing the office, bringing it into the 21st century. Ideally, hopefully in the very near future, getting our records available online so that people can search our records from home, things of that nature.
Thank you. This is for the board. In 10 years, do you think the tax rate will be higher or lower? Do you think the value of your house will be higher or lower? First question.
In 10 years?
10 years, that's...
We've been holding the budget pretty close, so that there is no big increase, and we've been watching very carefully what's coming in the future. Our tax is going to go up. Well, if they go up, it's not going to be that we didn't do our job, because we work very hard at it, and we have businessmen on our board so they understand it a little better. You have to realize it's a 4-year term if you're a councilman. And the reason for that is because it takes you about 2 years to understand what's going on. And to make changes, you have to pay attention and get in there. 10 years is a long time. Look at the changes we've made in the last 10 years. When I first came on the board, we were held across the street, which was a courthouse at one time. And that's where we all met. And we built this building. We hope it's helped out the community, that they can use it also. And as we go forward, we're trying to make things better for our citizens. Water districts, that was a big thing to bring in. When wind farms wanted to come in, we looked at that as close as we could and came up with some laws to help prevent anything bad coming in. In other words, when there's money available, usually through the state or federal government, and there's companies that can get that money. But what they do is they come in and they want to build stuff. Solar farms. They're getting lots of money to do that. They can come in and build a solar farm, and if they're not making money on it, guess what? They're gone. But where's the solar farm? It's still in our backyard. And there's a lot of things bad about that, and we're looking into that and have been looking into it.
Can't you make your own solar farm here? You get that grant from the government.
Who's the government?
Yeah. Solar farm, how many make a solar farm?
I beg your
How
pardon?
many make a solar farm?
How many
Yeah,
megawatts?
more than one? a solar farm?
I'm not really sure of the question. How do you make a solar farm?
No, how many,
Oh, arrays?
arrays would have to go up to be a solar farm?
Oh, you
20
probably could just have 10 panels on a structure in your
Yeah.
backyard.
You know, if you can get the money and you can get the permits and go through the town, go through our code enforcement officers and that, sure you can.
Oh, I meant the town itself.
No, the town doesn't want to do that. And for as long as I'm here, I'm gonna speak against it because there's so many bad things about solar arrays. And they have to be maintained, and the people that are putting them up are not really looking at maintaining them 10 years down the road when they start deteriorating and poisoning the soil. There's so many bad things about solar arrays. Now, individuals can put, solar panels on their homes. That's still available, and that helps out the individual. But these other, what companies want to do, and take a look, there's some in Batavia, solar arrays. And as they deteriorate, if they're not replaced or maintained, they're going to start to contaminate the soil. So hopefully in 10 years, we're better than we are today. But we work at it every time.
Okay, Councilman, I cut you off. Does anybody else have any answers for that one?
This guy's the one talking.
You're as bad as the crowd. So I do have another solar question here, so I'll just read it. It's to Mr. Clement. Seems like that's one of the hot button topics today. And somebody else wrote really small again. Are we safe in Stafford from solar farms? It was said in a public meeting in this room, we have to do our part. Don't you think we do our part by raising the acres of agricultural produce, green beans, beets, potatoes, cabbage, sweet corn, field corn, etc., for agriculture and the economy? We mustn't redefine agriculture. Please redefine that, please, or please comment on that.
I think in our comprehensive plan, it states, I wish I had the language right here, because there's language in our comprehensive plan which pretty much precludes solar arrays of any kind. It doesn't speak to them specifically, but it speaks to preserving farmland. And that's pretty much where the town board sits. We're a farming community, and we want to keep it that way. See, these companies that bring in these solar farms, the money that they get is our money. We're financing them. It's all tax dollars, and it's all on us. They pay an outrageous amount of money per acre. $1,300, I think, is what it is compared to what you can get from agriculture. But where does that money come from? Comes out of my pocket, your pocket. Our pocket is being picked.
And where is the energy going?
Yeah, where is the energy going?
So it's better to put it on your town hall to run your electric.
Think about it.
Get up there tomorrow,
And get those grants instead of giving it to corporations.
So I have a question for the supervisor and the town council. Does Hanson Aggregates contribute anything to Stafford?
Well, they produce the blacktop that makes the nice roads that we like to drive on. It's a big business. I can tell you, I don't know how many tons of stuff that comes out of that quarry goes by my house every day. They provide a much needed service.
I think that the question will pretty much indicate it. Are they taxable? Is that taxable products?
Sure it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's taxable. They pay taxes.
Okay.
They employ people. right?
So, Mr. Cianfrini, can we stop some of the new laws at our grassroots local government? Can we, and I think you're talking about some of those laws you were talking about earlier.
The answer is directly probably not, in terms of stopping them. I think the best thing we can do is, keep electing candidates like Steve that they're going to fight against it, as tough as it is being in the minority. The hope is that at some point in the near future, we can retake the Senate. And my personal opinion is government works best when it's a split government. When you've got, two divergent opinions, you tend to find a middle ground. We don't have that right now. So I think the best thing we can do is hope that, we get back one of the houses in the state, we get the Senate back, and, hope we can get back to a compromise.
Mr. Mullen, do you have hope or despair for the future of Stafford as a place to raise a family?
I have hope. I have hope because of the people. There's a lot of passionate people in this town, vocal passionate people who love the town. I grew up here, and I had his son move away 16 years ago to Arizona. He now has a family, and they're looking to move back to the town of Stafford. And to me, that's just great news. We see so many people wanting to flee. I've got one of my own wanting to come back. I see a great future because of the people. And it got brought up earlier about, all Republicans sitting on the board. 4 years ago when we ran, there was 5 people running for 2 seats, and it was a great election. I loved it, and we had Democrats, we had independents, we had Republicans, and I thought that was just, like I said, it was a great election, and you got to know your candidates, how they felt, and I just wish that we could be there again today, because I think that's great for the town of Stafford.
Thank you. This is for our solar panel expert, whoever this may be. The solar panels on Route 5, how long will they last and how are they maintained? I don't know which panels you're talking about on Route 5, but.
They have to be the ones that are on private residences. And how long will they last, I don't know, and who maintains them, I don't know that either. I would assume the property owner.
Because we had some proposed solar panels on 5, some arrays, correct, that didn't go through?
No, there's no.
Never was, okay.
No.
Did they have to get okayed by you or the state?
Depends on the size.
Oh, that's right, you said that. Are you saying it doesn't matter how many there are?
I don't think they'll put a solar array in it for anything less than 28. I think that's the...
And while we're on that, for Robert Clement, Robert Pacer, Don Mullen, and James Duyssen, how do you feel green energy, solar, and wind should be taxed? Just Mr. Duyssen, you start this one.
Pretty hard to tax that. Can't tax the wind. I mean, there again, if a property wants, if some individual wants to put up a windmill to generate power, same thing with solar. If you want to put solar panels on your roof, you can do it.
And let's take that one step further then. So instead of somebody putting them up on their house for that, maybe people understand this, are large solar farms or wind farms or anything like that allowed in Stafford?
As of right now, no.
Smaller ones on personal properties?
We don't regulate that. If you want to put solar panels on the roof of your house, you can do it.
No. Say I had a small farm. I could put it on my farm?
There again, I think it's 20 acres. But there again, our solar law has not been okayed by the Secretary of State. As it is written, it's going to be restricted to industrial zones only.
Okay, thank you. Again, Mr. Clement, since this is the hotbed here, it appears that federal, state, and county want to control our town. Do you worry about that?
Yes, I do. There's a lot of nonsense that comes down from Albany and other places that kind of governs how we do business here. Yes.
Want to expand upon that a little bit more? Or?
Well, it's hard to say. Every once in a while, there's mandates that you have to, certain things that you have to do, that comes down from the state, and I'm drawing a blank here. So.
That's okay. And I'm just going to set it, you forgot one word when you said mandates, you meant unfunded.
Unfunded. They're never funded. I mean, we've complained about this for years. Unfunded mandates. They still keep coming.
Okay. All right, so here's a question for each of the candidates. We're still got plenty of time here. So, with the new New York State laws affecting us, how will you defend us and keep us safe? Further discuss how you see the common person's right eroding. What will you do? And let's start on the far end.
Repeat that again?
So with all the new laws coming up, so New York State laws coming up, how will you defend us and keep us safe? Further discuss how you see the common person's rights eroding. What will you do? You know, protect the common person from these.
Well, it's going to depend on what the law is going to be to start with, and how it's written, and decipher from there.
Okay. Mr. Mullen?
I would say just to keep our local government strong, to stay united. So when these new laws come down, these new mandates come down, when the outside environment tries to invade us, that we're one strong, if you would, and that we can push back as a group and push back intelligently and with knowledge. So they know that we're a force to be reckoned with. Because it's going to get worse and it's going to get tough, but we just got to stick together as a group. Not just us, but all of us, to make sure that we can, fend that off.
Mr. Macer?
I mean, most of the things we do, like when we wrote laws for wind farms and we're writing laws for solar, we're pretty much done with that. But the state has to okay it. And our hands are tied. We can't do anything or regulate anything until the state gives us the nod. And once that happens, then we can move on. I mean, the state constantly, if they find out you're making money some way, they're going to tell you can't do that anymore. You know, look at our carnival. You know, that was subsidizing the fire department. I don't know if you realize how much money the town has to put into the fire department now, because the fire department doesn't have that money coming in. Because they can't run that the way it was. State regulated it against it. So that money is not available. So who puts the money up? Our taxpayers put the money up. Those are the things that are happening, and we're trying to protect everybody against. And I've said it 100 times. When Beth says about Republicans, you know, I told her to run against me many times. I've been here over 30 years. Why? because people don't like what I'm doing. No, they do like what I'm doing. Because I don't speak for just the Republicans. I speak for our town, anybody in our town. I don't care what your affiliation is. When I was on the committee and we were interviewing for town clerk, at that point in time, our committee that was there, and I was chairing it, we put in this gentleman right here. Raise your hand, Walt. And he finally retired. But he's a Democrat, okay? And our committee, believe it or not, was all Republicans. And why did we put him in and not a Republican? Because he was qualified, and no Republican was qualified to do it. That's what we will continue to do.
Rob?
I have nothing to add to that.
Okay. All right, let's let the judges, do you have anything to add to this? You guys have been quiet all night.
Judicial branch.
I know.
This is kind of a fine line.
I know.
Yeah,
I know it is.
It's really, we're kind of bound by the law, so
Yeah.
whatever goes on that end ends up in the judicial part of it, so.
I understand.
There's hope bail reform law. We're gonna have our little bench book out, and the least restrictive form of bail with the criminals that come in front of us, we'll have to abide by.
Well, in terms of pushback, as I said, specifically with regard to they call it the green light law for the driver's licenses, I have gone on record, excuse me, and said, as the law is currently written, I believe it places me and my staff at odds with federal law, forces us to potentially violate the law ourselves. It prohibits us from reporting crimes that we witnessed, and unless and until there are significant changes made to it, either through the court system or legislatively, it won't be enforced in Genesee County by my office. The other thing, I sit on 3 different committees statewide. I sit on New York State Association of County Clerks Legislative Committee, Judicial Reform Committee, and the SAFE Act Committee. And we have meetings in Albany. I'm probably going to New York City pretty soon to meet with the Chief Administrative Judge with regard to some proposed changes judicially, where they're looking to possibly consolidate surrogates court, county court, and family court under the Supreme Court umbrella. So we're going down to discuss that. So those committees give me a voice at the state level to possibly have some influence over some of the laws that do come down. So hopefully, before they become laws, we can have some input and influence the way they're implemented.
Good, thank you. 3 questions left. 2-part question, and we'll just stick with the town council and the supervisor. What are your concerns for the town, and how do you go about changing? How will you go about changing them? Concerns for the town, and how do you go about changing them?
Well, that's what our town board meetings are for. So if a potential change comes down the road and somebody wants to do something that we don't like, I mean, if you want to try to come up with we have code enforcement and zoning enforcement offices. And if you want to build something, let's say, you start there. And they'll tell you, whether it's okay or not okay.
Councilman Pace.
Kind of redundant question.
It is a little bit. So if it's too redundant for you, we'll just move on. That's fine.
Yeah, pretty much I've said it before. We're here to protect you and do the things that are good for the town. If you don't come to us, then you don't have a complaint. I've always said that. I've had people write me letters and not sign them. Guess what I did with the letter? It went in the garbage. If you won't sign it, I won't read it. You step up, tell me who you are and what you're concern is, and we'll act on it.
Mr. Mullen?
I don't see any big changes in the near future, but that's not to say they're not going to be there. And changes are inevitable. And just to agree with the rest of them, it's like when those changes come, we work as a board, as a group, to try to overcome the changes and the problems and the issues that come with those changes. And I think we work really well as a group. We're very diverse, and I think that's the nice thing about what we do is we come from different backgrounds. We're very diverse. We each have a voice, and we use that voice. But at the end of the day, we come together and just try to overcome the problems and the issues.
Each one of us has our own opinions, and if one of us doesn't agree with the other ones, we state our situation, why, and we talk about it and ask each other, and we work it out amongst all of us together. We want to do what's best for the taxpayer. We're here working for the taxpayer. I want to know what the taxpayer want us to do, in my opinion.
All right, last question. For the town council, and this was brought up earlier, but I think somebody just expanded on this. Will you participate in the bicentennial events? So they want to know, will you participate? And because they said, I know in the past there has been little or no participations. Example, the Christmas tree lighting. So I just want to make sure that you are going to participate.
I will participate.
They're calling you on the carpet.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll be honest, I will participate in any way that I'm able to, but like I said, I'm doing, there's things coming up in the next year. There's going to be a collective bargaining agreement coming up that I'll probably be chairing, and I'm going to have some things that I'm not going to be able to take a lead on, but I'm going to be involved in any way people need me to be involved.
I'll participate if I can, but my business has to run too, so.
We have a rough plan in place as to what we're going to do. I don't have it in front of me, but there's room for anybody else that wants to come in, and if you have a particular activity or something that you want to do, call me.
Right, Burr. If I can just interject here for a second. For those of you that may or may not know, Bob Clement is the chairman for the bicentennial. He is the person who is taking the lead and making sure that, this is going to be a wonderful celebration of our community.
And I got a lot of help too, so I don't think I'm doing it all by myself, because I'm not. But like I say, if anybody has an idea, don't wait until the end of next year and say, well, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that, and da-da. You always hear this after the fact. Why didn't you do something? Well, we didn't know. We don't know unless somebody comes forward and tells us.
I guess one remark I would make about it. How many people in here are willing to volunteer? Raise your hand.
There you go.
Get their names.
Scan the audience, would you, with their hands up?
We're all willing to help out, and our board is behind it. In our budget, we've come up with the money, which was significant amount of money, to help out and do the things we need to do. And we have some very good citizens that volunteer their time. That's why this is put together by our citizens. Margaret did a fantastic job, and they do it every year. Unfortunately, we're not opposed this year. Why aren't we opposed? I don't know. This is the first time I ran.
Because you don't let anyone else talk. No, I just.
But even if
Wait
you're
a
not
second.
opposed, it's so nice to see your faces.
Are you from Stafford?
No. No, people drag me along.
She's not from Stafford. No, you know, those people that want to help, we need you. And we've said that before. Now, when we've said about government, we've asked people, well, will you be on a committee? Guess how many people said they would? 0. Nobody wants to be on a committee, but they are willing, and the person's not here so I can't confront her, to complain about it. Well, quit complaining and do something about it. There's things you can do. You know, first time I've ever been unopposed. Why? Our Republican committee works hard to find qualified people, and if they're not qualified, we work hard to get rid of them. Now, if the Democrats want to put people up, we encourage it. I've said for years, you know, put somebody up against me, run against me. You know, I welcome it. Because the way I got on this board originally, and I live across the street, is they were going to put the highway department here. So I went to the board and complained. And my wife said, you should get on that committee so they'll listen to you. I can't get off.
All right, so we'll end the questioning at this point. All the questions have been go through, so we'll start on this end, work our way through. Everybody can give a little summary statement, try and keep it a little concise, and we'll get on to some other events.
Well, I think I've said enough tonight. I just want to thank everybody for coming out and giving me the opportunity to speak.
And thank you so much.
Thanks, I didn't get to speak much. Grab some pens, chip clips, and bags, and have a good night.
I have a brochure back there too, you can pick one up if you'd like and learn a little bit more about me. Just thank everybody for your interest. This is one part of the political process that works. You can come out and voice your opinion, and I'm glad that you did. And if you have any ideas on how on our bicentennial program, please let me know.
Yeah, I love seeing lots of people come and ask questions, and I'd like to thank you for that. I'd like to thank Mike Cianfrini for being here, and
Bob Hawley.
Oh, Steve Hawley.
I know there are a lot of Bobs.
I just want to say real quick that I thank you. I don't take this lightly. When I get elected, and anything I do, I gotta believe that I give it 100%. My dad drilled that into me growing up on the family farm, that if you're gonna do something, you give it 100%. And I just hope that what I do, I'm doing justice, and I'm doing it for y'all. So if anybody's got concerns, you know, feel free, call me, come see me. I'd love to talk to you.
Thank you for coming out. There's some pens and paper back there for us. I love working with all these guys here. They're a bunch of really knowledgeable guys. I'm learning a lot from these guys, and it's been a pleasure.
Not being a candidate this year, who knows about next year, or what office, it's great to be here. This is the most important part of any elected official's run, because it's local, and all politics are local. These are the guys, and no gals, these are the guys you need to talk to on an everyday basis, whether it's at church, at the family store, wherever it is, you're in touch with them almost every day. So vote for them, even though they're unopposed, they're doing a good job, obviously. Thanks.
Steve, I just want to say one thing. You said, who knows next year in what office? Are you telling us you might be throwing your head in the ring for president? There you go. Tweeter.
No tweeting.
Yeah, how about
governor?
All right, so let's give another round of applause for the candidates. And to you in the audience, we hope this evening's forum has given you an enhanced glimpse into our candidates and the issues of which you are concerned, and that this will help you consolidate your decisions when you vote on November 5th. Now back to you. This was nice. Like Vanna.
To me, Vanna, I'll turn the letter. Oh, okay. Every election is important and people should get out and vote, even though we have incumbents who are running unopposed. One of the most popular beliefs is that voting doesn't matter, that special interest groups have all the power and that individuals have no control over their government or over politics. You may know this, but this election is about you, your family, your health care, your job, your environment, and your civil liberties. It's about you. Take time to find out which major issues could affect our town, county, and state, and we urge you to take the next step and exercise your vote on November 5th. And take a friend with you. Demonstrate that democracy is alive in Stafford, Genesee County, and in New York State. The polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Tuesday, November 5th. And a pleasant reminder that the Stafford Historical Society is having their bake sale that day too. More of Linda's pies. So, with that said, we will draw for the pie. And I will be announcing the winner.
All safe and sound in here.
Okay. Actually, I'm not going to draw for it. Did you guys put in for the pies? Well, you can.
How are you gonna do that?
Would you like to?
That's all
You don't like pie. Okay.
right. Because I said they had to share.
All right. I'm going to let Jamie, he did such a great job being our moderator tonight. Jamie, just... Okay, the winner is Kelly Hennell. This beautiful vote pie. Look what you're missing, you guys. Yum.
I'm out on my Tuesday.
I mean, that's how I got these. By eating this. There you go, girlie. Okay. All right. Oh, yes. Please, don't be disappointed. The refreshments have changed. Unfortunately, our local cider and homemade donut place closed for the season. Ooh. So we have pumpkin pie, whipped cream, I think I see brownies and other stuff over there, and we still have cider, so that's a good thing. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. It really means a lot. We put a lot into this, and we do it for the town and for the people, so that you know who your folks are that are going to be representing you. Thank you, and thanks for And we're going to be having refreshments now, and hopefully good conversation.